Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Way is in Training. This is a podcast exploring how warriors should train and fight, as well as how they should live. We will talk about technique, but we'll also dive deep into fitness, mindset, and strategy. We will explore leadership and philosophy as well. So whether you are a young soldier, a veteran police officer, a responsible armed citizen, or simply someone looking for an authentic life, let's examine how the lessons of combat and preparation for it can help us fulfill our potential. Let's explore the way together and learn how the discipline of training can show us our true selves amidst the chaos of life.
Hey everybody, in this episode I've got my good buddy Caleb Giddings back for another great conversation. For those of you who don't know him, Caleb is the lead man for all things social media with Taurus. He is the Wheelgun Whisperer and the internet Raconteur Extraordinaire. So anything else you want to tell everybody about you, Caleb?
No,
I left out Top Shot alumnus.
Of course, Top Shot alumnus. Oh, the complicated relationship that it's funny. My relationship with Top Shot isn't complicated anymore. I used to struggle, especially in, kind of in that 5 to 7 year period after the show aired. I really struggled with being known as Caleb from Top Shot because I had done so much in my career to advance myself past that, right? I was a better shooter. I was better at my job. I was doing all these other things. And so there was a period where that really bothered me. And I now have reached this level of Zen maturity because I'm so old. But in all seriousness, I've in my older age, I've gotten such a sense of peace about the show. And a big part of it has been that the audience of people who bring up the show to me have changed, right? It used to be I would have people tell me that, oh, I watched you on Top Shot when I was, kind of the same age you were, right? Like, people about my age. And now what I'm getting is, and this actually happened to me at IDPA Nationals. One of the guys on my squad was like, hey, please don't take this the wrong way, but I watched you on Top Shot when I was in high school. And I've gotten people who have said, I watched you on Top Shot with my dad, right? And
Well, you know that eventually when you meet my son, you're going to get that from him because he and I watch it religiously.
10 out of 10. But what that's done has, I've been able to realize that show was so special. It touched not one, but multiple generations of gun owners. And I should never be anything but grateful for having got to participate in that. Take away the fact that it changed my life and very directly gave me the career that I have today. Yeah. So these days, not so complicated relationship with Top Shot. Once upon a time, struggled with it, but these days, it is I look back on it as a very positive thing in my life.
Would it be inappropriate to ask a little bit about why you struggled with it, about what kind of the conflict was there for you?
Yeah, I mean, when I went on Top Shot, I was a good enough shooter to get on the show, which you did have to be able to shoot to get on the show, right? But they did also select people that would create TV, and that's an important thing to remember. But, around 2015, around that kind of time frame, I was much better at shooting. I was competing at the national level. I was finishing in, top. I was finishing within like 95% of people winning national championships in revolver division, and I didn't want to be known for this TV show that I was on 5-7 years ago. I wanted to be known for the things that I was doing right then in that moment, right? I wanted to be known for the things that I felt like were really good accomplishments. And that's just, it was, a tough balance. It was just a kind of a tough balance to strike at times. But again, it was one of those things that was also, a little bit of maturity goes a long way. And as I'm fond of saying, we all got to grow up sometime.
I don't know if
I'm
I
trying really hard not to.
Eventually it gets you. growing up just by sheer attrition gets to you eventually. Sooner or later,
not everybody, but
sooner or later, a little bit of wisdom gets beaten into you.
one would think.
One would
But no,
think, right?
and these days, obviously, and I think the other thing too, just to be perfectly frank, is the number of people that recognize me from Top Shot decreased, and people did start to recognize me for the jobs that I was doing, the places that I was appearing, and that kind of stuff, and that helped. That I think that also helped me get a sense of peace about the show.
Did I ever tell you that a good friend of mine from the firearms unit in Chicago PD was on that show?
What was his name?
No, female.
No, yes,
Parumba.
Tara. Yes,
Yeah.
we've talked about that. I still will occasionally talk to Tara. I have a really, really inappropriate story, not about Tara, but about somebody else from Chicago PD that I absolutely will not tell on a podcast. But anyway, that was a whole lifetime ago. That was like 3 different versions of me ago. So it's a hell of a story. But anyway, yeah, that's I've said too much. Change the topic quick.
Yep. No, and it was funny because I remember when she was trying out for it, I actually went with her she was trying out for a different reality show, like right around the same time. And she told me about trying out for the show called Top Shot when I was hanging out with her while she was trying out for the other one. We worked together on the range, like what feels like 1,000 years ago now.
Because it was 1,000 years ago, as a matter of fact. Top Shot premiered over 15 years ago. All right. That is actually a long time at this point.
Well, you figure, I mean, just doing the math for me, like this was the first 5 years of my career, and I've been retired for over 5 years, and I was there for 21. So we're talking a significant amount of time ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, it was 2 whole marriages ago. That is a good joke that you can leave in.
So I've got a question for you, since we're on the Top Shot train for a minute. And then we have a topic I know we talked about before I started recording that I think will be a good one. And not to understand that I'm not being overly negative when I say this, but I've heard stories about like guns not being really zeroed or maybe being museum pieces that weren't in great working order. And it's got to be logistically difficult to run a show like that, right? I mean, it really does.
I mean, the logistics, I mean, yes, it is logistically difficult to run a show like that. And it's more so difficult, in my opinion, when you're dealing with Hollywood. So the weapons are all provided by Hollywood prop houses, right? Okay. And Hollywood prop houses primarily deal with they don't deal with live fire, if that makes sense, right? They're dealing with blanks, and increasingly they're just dealing with CGI. Like the Alec Baldwin incident was sort of the final nail in the coffin of even blank fire with anything but extremely tightly controlled circumstances, which is appropriate. But the logistics of managing the guns for the event is difficult, right? Like you have to have really competent armorers. You have to have there's a lot of moving parts that go into that to make it work. And even now, 15 years later, I remember some of the challenges that we had with some of the guns in the show. Like the episode that I got eliminated on, the armorers could not keep the flintlock rifle operational. We went through multiple guns that one of them they loaded wrong, and then they couldn't get the ball out of it. So for anyone who is interested in taking up muzzle loading, I want you to remember this mantra: powder, patch, ball. Always in that order, never in any other order. Powder, patch, ball. Okay. If you go patch, powder, ball, you might get the projectile out of the barrel. If you go ball before anything else, you need a tool, which it's basically a great big long corkscrew. When it goes down in, you screw it into the soft lead projectile, and then you have to rip it out by main force, right? But they loaded one of the guns wrong, so that gun went down. Then one of the other ones, it was starting to not go off because the channel for a flintlock has to be clear, it has to be cleaned out, right? Like there's a little tool that you jam through it to punch any debris out of it. No one had the tool to do that. So they tried to clean it, and some idiot put CLP down a black powder gun, which is not good. If you use CLP on a black powder gun, it turns it into goo. Like,
Yeah.
and then and then the only way to clean it is you have to basically pour boiling soapy hot water down the barrel and just swab it over and over and over again. It takes forever. Anyway, so that was an example of the armor struggling, and that was just one episode in particular. There was a lot of stuff like that logistically that was interesting. I also apparently signed an NDA that has like $1 million clause in it. So, but that was also 15 years ago. So I don't think they're going to come after me at this point because I've said all of this stuff on podcasts before. um, but there were. I will say this: what you saw on TV, and I can only speak for my season of Top Shot, but what you saw on TV accurately reflected the results of the competition, right? There was never any manipulating, there's never any this guy shouldn't have won and the results were manipulated or anything like that. At least in my season, and I cannot speak for any of the other seasons, but I also have no reason to assume it would be anything else. The actual shooting gave you the results that you saw. Like that was it. Like these guys won, this guy didn't win. Every now and then there were reshoots because props failed or something like that. But what was in the final cut of the show was true to how it actually went down.
And like now when I look back on that show, because I didn't shoot USPSA or IDPA then, like I was just a shooter for work, and I thought I would have liked to have seen some action shooting type stages, maybe some falling steel stuff or something that was a little more than just run to this position, then make a very difficult shot, then run to this position, then make a very difficult shot.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying those weren't fun or they shouldn't have been in there, but maybe a little more variety would have been nice, I think.
Yeah. And I think, the difficulty that you run into with when you're producing a show like that is you have to make it so that it is visually accessible to the people who are watching it and also logistically possible, right? Like,
Yeah.
And because it's the History Channel, you have to incorporate more than just guns because we had bows and arrows. One season they had atlatls. I think they had boomerangs in another season. Hilariously, and I do mean this hilariously, despite me being pictured in the promotional photos with a slingshot, I didn't shoot a slingshot because they didn't do that until like episode 7 or whatever. So never once did I fire a slingshot in the service of History Channel or Top Shot.
So my son actually made an atlatl for like a school project.
That seems reasonable.
And I think he was inspired by that episode of Top Shot. So
I mean, they were. I still remember that episode and how terrible they were at throwing those atlatls. I'm like, you guys are not good at this.
I did like the game of horse at the end of each season, where people would pick difficult shots with weird targets off of the bar.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I thought that was
fun.
For a TV show. I thought that was good.
Mm-hmm. Well, you do something like that as a drill.
Sort of. I mean, it's got some of the same, like you're picking your course of fire and distances and all that, but it just seemed kind of neat with the variety of targets.
Yeah. Like I'm going to shoot this paint can at 150 yards with, an iron sighted Mosin Nagant or something like that.
Yeah. Support hand only. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I tell you what, if I'd ever made it to that, which sadly I never did, I would have done the exact same thing I do when I was a kid and I would play horse. I got very good at shooting free throws, right? And just because I'd be in the gym at my church while my mom was teaching a class or something, and I would just stand out there and shoot free throws. I got really good at shooting free throws, and so that's what I would do when I would play horse. Is I would just shoot free throws because I knew that I had like a 99% chance of making any given free throw. So I would like clunk. And then, the other guy misses. I'm like, it's easy letter for me. So my free throw, quote unquote, would have been 25 yards weak hand only at a small target because
Yeah,
I'm really good at that for some reason.
that's a particularly painful thing to be really good at.
Well, it's because so fun fact that a lot of people don't know about me. I shoot with my right hand. I'm right-eye dominant. I'm actually left-handed. I read, write, eat, and throw a baseball with my left hand. So when I am confronted with weak hand only stages, all I do is move the gun over in front of my dominant eye because my left hand is equally as dexterous as my right hand. Like I don't struggle with the like, oh God, I don't know how to pull a trigger now that this gun's suddenly in my left hand.
So I've got two things on that you might like. One is I was supposed to be left-handed.
But you were born in the 1970s, so you were bullied into being right-handed.
I wish I could say 70s, 60s, my friend. I was born in
Hey,
the 1960s. So,
whatever.
well, here's how it went down, apparently. I have very vague memories of this, but my parents have confirmed this. I couldn't pick whether I was right-handed or left-handed. So I must have been very close on dominance, like, very minor left-hand dominance. And the teacher, I don't really blame the teacher for this because this wasn't a case of you're going to be right-handed because all normal people are right-handed. This was a case of a teacher getting fed up with the kid who won't decide which hand he is for like 9 months. So I can't really blame the teacher for eventually going, just pick one. And me going, my little obnoxious self going, well, what's everybody else? They're right-handed. Okay, I'm right-handed.
Yeah, I'll be right-handed. Great.
Yeah. So kind of the effect of that is I do write right-handed, but I can scribble left-handed pretty well. And I eat like a lefty would eat with the utensils.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't feel too bad about this because there's a really convincing theory by a historian that Miyamoto Musashi was actually left-handed. Because in the samurai days, there were no left-handed samurai. You only held the sword like a righty would. It's a very regimented culture, right? So his style of using the long sword in his right hand and the short sword in his left hand was like a European with a sword and shield. His long sword was basically his shield because that was his less dexterous hand. And he would use that to bind and tie up the opponent's weapons, and he'd finish them off with his good hand. So he was actually apparently, like according to this theory at least, it can't be proven, but the guy makes a pretty convincing case for it based on the art that Musashi taught, like his style, right?
Interesting.
And I always thought that was kind of cool. Like that was like the secret of his success was something he wasn't even allowed to be in his culture, which is kind of nice.
I was going to make a joke about how whenever I teach whenever I'm doing my government job and I teach a 249 or 240 class, at the start of the class, I'll be like, all right, is anyone in here left-handed? People put their hands up. I'm like, no, you're not. There are no left-handed machine gunners.
It's true. There aren't.
No. And well, at one time I saw this one girl try to shoot a 249 left-handed. And I was like, I'm going to let this happen because you are about to learn a very valuable lesson about listening to your instructor. And she did, and she didn't like it. And she then went back to doing it the correct way. And I'm like, problem solved. And it's institutional teaching. I'll tell you what, I used to be the biggest proponent of everyone should shoot competition. And if you're not shooting competition, you're not serious about shooting, right? And that was even after having served in the military. I was still that proponent. But what changed, what I hadn't done yet, and what changed my mindset on that was spending nearly a decade teaching institutional classes in the military. That's what changed my mindset on that, because I realized that even amongst the people where they are literally getting paid to do it, and it is a core job requirement for them, people will show up to those classes and be completely uninvested. And they will want nothing to do with it other than to get their good cookie for qualifying and to get off the range. And if those people can't be bothered to buy in, then asking a printer repairman who's got a wife and 3 kids, and they've got soccer and baseball and hockey and all this other thing, for me, the arrogance that it takes to tell that guy that he's not serious about defending his family because he's not going to take a whole fucking a whole Saturday or a whole Sunday to go to the range and shoot a match. It's absolute insanity to me. And that doesn't mean that I don't think people should shoot competition. You should. I think competition makes you a better shooter, regardless of whether you're shooting IDPA or USPSA or even Steel Challenge. These will make you better at shooting, better at gun handling, and I
Yep.
think it's great. But I am now no longer, oh, well, you have to, shoot 5 matches a year to prove you're serious about this. Because when you think about the logistics of this, and this is something I've thought a lot about, when you think about Bob the printer repairman, right? Um, Bob's got a wife, he's got 3 kids, he, has a good career fixing printers because your printers are always broken. And it's actually more feasible for Bob once a year to take a high level pistol class, right? To take a class from, any of the traveling instructors out there than it is for him to go shoot 20 matches a year, 10 matches, or even 8 matches a year, right? Like it's way more feasible for him to say, I have one weekend that I have carved out to do this thing. And then maybe I can go to the range here and there in between that for some sustainment training, right? And again, the arrogance that I had to tell Bob that he wasn't serious about defending himself because he wasn't going to go take his weekends and go shoot matches, it's insane to me.
And I've got a lot of thoughts on this one. And then I want to get back to the left-handed thing because I got something else that I want to talk about
okay.
there. But
this is the actual topic. This is the thing we talked about.
I know. But I got something good to say.
Okay.
No, but anyway, like I have really, as I get older, realized that I was elitist and arrogant about a number of things that I didn't really have a right to be. And like I can trace that back all the way to doing martial arts and competing as a kid and thinking that the older guy in the dojo who was trying to learn to defend himself wasn't as serious as I was because he wasn't getting beat up on the weekends, right? But like you said, it's not just like I am not the arbiter of what training somebody else should pay to go take. Like I don't have the right to go, don't train with that guy because it's a free market. It's caveat emptor. It's up to them to decide what's worthwhile and what's not. And it's not up to me to tell them. Like I can give them my opinion if I'm asked, but I don't get to judge somebody because in the early stages of their development, they thought somebody was good that wasn't as an instructor, right? We all go through that.
Yeah, I mean, I will still judge you if, you've been in the industry for like 10, 15 years and you're, still think Rob Pincus is a good instructor. But I'm not actually fully kidding. I've had very public arguments with Rob over the years, and I actually don't dislike Rob as a person. I just don't agree with any of his methods or teaching practices. But it's a fun guy to have a beer with. I definitely will say that about Rob. But no, it's one of those things where, and especially when you are, for lack of a better word, in the industry, right? In the space, right? Like I work for a gun company. Before I worked for a gun company, I was a freelance consultant to the firearms industry, right? My lifestyle allows for me to do these things very easily and very accessibly, right? And I have nothing but respect for USPSA shooters, for IDPA shooters who do go out and shoot 3 or 4 matches a month and, have regular guy jobs and normal lives, but also that's their hobby, right? Like if they didn't shoot, if they weren't shooting IDPA, they'd be doing that with golf or bowling or RC airplanes or whatever things guys do in their spare time. And this also applies to concealed carry too, because I definitely used to be that guy who was like, if you're not carrying a Glock 19 and a reload and a weapon mounted light
and a knife and a weapon mounted light and a pocket flashlight, and
then you're not serious about concealed carry and self-defense. And I was like, again, the arrogance. I was in a conversation with somebody recently, and he was talking about concealment solutions for his workplace, which was a workplace where they didn't have metal detectors or anything like that, but it was if he was found to have a gun, he would be fired. And he was talking about concealment solutions for that. And I said to him, I'm like, have you considered that the best way to protect your family is to not take a gun to work? Right? Because when you're talking about protecting your family, your income is a huge part of what protects your family. And if you're willing to, and like I made the statement, and I stand by this. This is not everyone, but for some people, the having the capability to defend yourself from a low risk violent encounter may not be worth the risk of losing your
Yep.
fucking job, right? Like, especially if you're the primary breadwinner for your family.
Well, and like back to kind of talking about how, like, what your level of participation should be, right? Like
Mhm.
saying that if you're not shooting 2 matches a month, you're not serious, or like I still give this prescription in all my classes. I have like a standard prescription for people that want to get better, for how much time they should put into it. And I base it around getting people to B class in USPSA, because I kind of think that if you're B class in USPSA, which is attainable for everyone with an amount of effort, but not a huge, it's not like the world ending effort of trying to get higher, right?
Mhm.
That's good enough for pretty much any gunfight you're likely to be in. And I don't even mean just as a civilian, I mean as a professional. Like an engagement with a pistol, if you're a B class shooter, the chances of you running into something that you can't solve by being a B class shooter that you could solve if you were better at shooting a pistol are pretty slim to none.
Well, and one thing that people do not understand is that a B class shooter, when compared to the average shooting population, is like unto a god. All
Oh
right,
yeah, yeah.
like a B class shooter. When I was deployed, one of the guys in my unit hit me up. He was doing some home station sustainment training with our security forces team, right? With, sworn Air Force law enforcement officers. And he was like, "Hey, what are some good times for a bill drill?" And I was like, "Do you want good times, or do you want good times for normal people?" He was like, "Give me the range." I'm like, "Okay, my goal is anything under 2.5 cold from concealment. That's what I'm trying to hit on any given day. If I can pull up to the range and rip a sub 2.5 clean with a concealed firearm, I'm having a good day. The gold standard is under 2 seconds. In my classes, I try to get people under 3.5 seconds usually, and also that's because people in my classes are usually shooting wheel guns. When I teach open enrollment semi-auto classes, I'm trying for that 3 second mark, right? With most people. And he goes, "Cool." And he texted me 2 days later. He's like, "You humbled a lot of people." Because there were a lot of people talking shit about, "Oh, yeah, 6 shots in under 2 seconds from the holster, piece of cake." And these people are hitting like 4 or 5 second par times. And they're like, "This is a lot harder than I thought." Yeah, yeah, it is. It's not, I mean, it's a simple drill. It's not an easy drill to do well.
And the other thing too is, going back to kind of the original thread here, it's not up to me. It's like it's not up to me to tell people who they can train with or who they should train with
Mhm.
and shouldn't. Like I'll give them my opinion, but it's not up to me to be the arbiter of that, right? It's also not up to me. I can give my recommendation that, if you want to be at a truly competent level, you should do this amount of training a week. And it's a recommendation. But not everybody can do that. And that shouldn't limit their right to defend themselves and their family is not contingent upon that.
Correct.
They need to be safe. They need to know how to carry a gun and be safe. And they should be as good as they can get within their physical and mental limitations and within the limitations that they have for like resources, time, money, all of those things. Because not everybody has enough time to dry fire an hour a day and live fire
Mhm.
every week and go to a match every weekend. Like that's not realistic for a lot of people. But it
I would
doesn't mean
argue
they
that's not
shouldn't.
realistic for most people.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean that if you can't do that, you shouldn't be able to learn to get better and defend your family and defend yourself. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think again, to go back to kind of the participation idea and how much you should do this is you should shoot exactly the amount that you want to shoot, right? Like that's the answer to it, because one of the things that we don't talk about this enough in the industry is, well, I will begin this with sort of with a question. how long have both USPSA and IDPA sort of hovered around that 40,000 member mark as individual organizations?
Since probably since 2000, right? I mean, I would imagine.
Uh, so I remember in 2011 at IDPA World Championship, they talked about having about 30,000 members, and I remember a couple of years ago they talked about having just over 40,000 members. Right, so that's growth, and that's good. But I also remember the same thing with USPSA, where the growth of these organizations is not, it's not a hockey stick chart, right? It is a very, very slow thing, because what happens is the vast majority of members in any shooting sports organization, whether it be USPSA, IDPA, um, Cowboy Action, actually to a way lesser extent, but that's for different reasons, uh, go through what we call the enthusiast cycle, right? And everyone does this to a certain extent. Some people never exit it, but the vast majority of people come in, and they come into us, and what we use, I'll use action shooting as sort of a big balloon. All right. So in this contains Steel Challenge, USPSA, and IDPA. And you come in, and at the start of the enthusiast cycle, you're like, this is great. And you're having fun, and you're getting better, and you're getting serious about it, and you're training a lot, and you're taking classes, and you're buying all of the gear, and you're reading the books, and you're watching the videos. And that's about the first 3 to 5 years of your cycle, right? And this is just your normal guy. And this could be, and in this cycle, you could go from anywhere from, you could start at C class, and you could go up to B class, and that could take you 3 to 5 years. You could start at B class because you're already pretty good, go up to GM. Like, the classifications don't actually matter for this. What matters is the amount of time that the sport is, that you are investing in the sport. And you go up there, and you get to that 3 to 5 year-ish mark. And then a lot of people get there, and their participation tapers off. And it tapers off because they get married. It tapers off because they have another kid. They get a new job. They move to a new city. They decide they want to buy a new car and spend that money on other things. It tapers off for a number of organic reasons. Very rarely does it taper off because they say, I don't like shooting anymore. It tapers off because life gets in the way. And so they will still go and shoot the occasional match, right? They'll be like, oh, you know what? I haven't shot a match in a couple of months. It'd be fun to go shoot. And they go shoot. But they don't dry fire as much. They're not buying the products. They're not watching the YouTube
Yep.
videos anymore. And that's and that usually happens around that 5 to 8 year mark. And then by your 10 year mark, you've pretty much exited the sport entirely. You probably don't shoot anymore. And you're just kind of, you're done. You're either going to your kids' baseball games, or you're doing something else. And then what is interesting, and what I would love to actually get down into the nitty gritty of, is then how many of those people 10 years later come back to the sport because their kids are in college or something like that, right? And I don't have any data on that, but that 3, 5, 8, 10 um enthusiast cycle is extremely common. And this isn't something that, like, we just thought up in the gun industry. This is consumer trends in any sort of hobbyist activity, right? Like cycling, golf, all of these things will have these very similar consumer trends. And then your diehards are the people that never exit, right? Those are the people like me, who have either made a career of it or gotten to very high levels of the hobby, so that there's some sort of financial balancing act going on, that kind of stuff.
I would argue there's probably another factor as well. And I'm not saying that all the factors you mentioned don't have a big role, because I think they do.
For sure.
But there comes a point, and it's a different point for everyone, where the law of diminishing returns really starts to hit you. So based on your natural talent, there comes a point where the level of participation you've had, albeit it may have been very serious, you might have been full in, but everybody's going to taper off in the development of skill at some point. Some of us taper off at world shoot level. Some of us taper off at B class or A class. Like, it just depends on where that happens, right?
So
And
wait, I'm gonna pause because I want to ask a question. Do you believe that not everyone can be a GM?
Yes, 100%.
Interesting.
100%.
I generally agree with that assessment, because I think that some people, I mean, obviously, leaving out people who have like physical real actual physical limb fact. I agree, because I think being a GM requires a level of physicality, skill, and dedication that not everybody has.
Yeah, and even if you have the dedication, there's an upper limit to everyone's visual processing speed.
Mhm.
There's an upper limit to everyone's speed at fine motor skills, fine movements, like pulling the trigger, right? There's an upper limit to everyone's ability to feel themselves in space, kinesthetic awareness, right? All of these things play in. Is shooting as athletic as some other sports when it comes to the movement stuff? No, but we're getting to the point now where that's actually becoming a determining factor on who wins at a much higher piece of the pie than it ever was before.
Mhm.
Like the top guys are
Which
seeing movement coaches and all that, and that takes athletic ability that not everyone has. Not everybody can move like that.
which is why I maintain, and this is one thing I have stayed dogmatic on, is that there are two shooting sports that are solely tests of your marksmanship skills, and those are Steel Challenge and the Bianchi Cup.
Yeah.
Those shooting sports, in my opinion, the winner of Steel, if there was ever a person, actually, I mean, there were people who did them both. Some guy named Brian Enos won both of them, but
Yeah,
if
but who
you
was
were
that? Who
to,
was that guy?
yeah,
Who was that
who
guy?
was
Yeah.
that guy? Um, but what is, if you today, if today there was a shooter that was produced who won production division at Steel Challenge and production division at Bianchi Cup, I would very comfortably say that that person is the best iron sight shooter on earth. Pure shooting ability, right?
Right.
Nothing to do with movement or all of these other ancillary tasks. Because, like, when you take IDPA Nationals, for example, right? You have to be, if you want to win that match, you have to be good at setting up your positions to maximize IDPA things. Like IDPA is different from USPSA in that shoot throughs count in IDPA. And when I tell you guys, if you weren't at the match, there were a fucking assload of no shoots positioned right behind shoot targets. All right. I did not hit any no shoots that were behind shoot targets. I did hit one that was in front of a shoot target, but that's okay. But if you weren't conscientious about that, and I saw lots of guys setting up entrances into positions so that they were taking a wider angle on a shoot target to avoid getting that shoot through so they could have a bigger shootable area. And you have to, if you want to win the game, that is part of what you have to practice. It's part of what you have to do versus just practicing shooting.
And at least the shoot through thing has a real world application, because that's a very real
Absolutely.
thing in the real world.
Shoot throughs count in real life.
Some of the things. So IDPA tries very hard to be tactical compared to USPSA.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm about to say does not diminish my thoughts on the value of IDPA or on its enjoyment as a sport, right? It's just facts. Some of the rules don't really matter in a gunfight the way they think they do.
Correct.
Things like dropping a magazine to the ground with a round in it, and if you don't pick the magazine up, you're going to get a penalty.
Right. That's the oldest IDPA penalty in the book too.
Yeah, if I drop a magazine to the ground unintentionally in a gunfight, I'm probably not going to bend down under fire to pick it up. I'm just saying, it's probably not going to happen.
Right, and it's funny because if you think about that, think about that scenario. So in the context of both of your old jobs and the context of my government job, if I drop a magazine on the ground in the middle of a gunfight, I'm going to grab one of the other 6 magazines on my vest and I'm going to load my gun and I'm going to go back to shooting, right? In the civilian context, if I drop a magazine on the ground in the middle of a gunfight, unless that's my only magazine, I'm going to reload my gun with the other magazine. And if it is my only magazine, I'm probably going to just take cover and be like, okay, I have a way different problem now that I need to fucking figure out. So, because the worst thing that I can do is stop moving and bend down and pick that up.
Well, and here's the reality too, that people don't want to admit. The moment you put anything on a timer, it is no longer truly tactical.
Facts.
Because yes, speed matters in a fight, but there are also times in a fight where you need to take a moment for other reasons. Like you need to not be in a hurry for other reasons. I shouldn't say not in a hurry. You're still in a hurry, but your hurry is a different kind of hurry, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, we'll take an IDPA stage for example, right? You and I have both done you and I have both have had access to, tremendous amounts of CQB training. You've done more CQB than probably like 6 or 7 other people combined. So in an IDPA stage, right? Like, you start off in your bedroom and you shoot the 6 bad guys in that bedroom, and then you just run into the next room. Like, you run in as fast as you can. In a real situation like that, I'm probably gonna like take a little pause before I head into that next
Yes,
room. Be like,
yes.
okay, I just shot these 3 guys in my house. Hang on, let me friggin' let's take a deep breath. Let's look around. Okay, now I'm gonna go into the hallway. All right, I'm not gonna sprint across the hallway into the next room to immediately shoot the 6 guys that I know are in there. It's a different scenario, and that artificiality that is introduced by the timer is something that we just kind of have to deal with, right?
And I'm not saying it's not valuable as training. It absolutely
No.
is. But you need to understand that it's different. That's
Mhm.
all. It's different. It's a shooting drill. It's not really a representation of an actual fight with a gun. It's a shooting drill.
No. And the thing that a lot of people get bent around an axle about is they miss the benefit of competition shooting entirely, because the primary benefit of competition shooting for someone. So let me backtrack this. By and large, once you get serious about, okay, I want to backtrack even further. There's what, 100 million gun owners in the United States that own 300 million guns. Okay, 98, 99.9 million of those gun owners are not serious about shooting. They have bought or serious about, they bought a gun for home defense, self-defense, whatever. They go to the range, they do their thing. God bless them. We need more of them. Keep buying guns, people. Buy yourself a Taurus GX2. They're awesome, very affordable right now. But the once you get into that pipeline of, I'm serious about shooting, and you can be serious about shooting, and I'm going to eliminate some of the other stuff. You can be serious about shooting for the context of this discussion, primarily for personal protection, or you can be serious about shooting primarily for competition, right? Like, those are kind of the 2 lanes that people split into once they get serious about shooting. And if you are serious about getting better at shooting in the context of self-defense as your primary goal, self-defense, personal protection, there is tremendous value to the shooting sports. But the value to the shooting sports is that it gets you better at shooting, and it gets you better at automaticity, so that when you are actually trying to solve a problem with a gun in your hand, you are not thinking sights, trigger, sights, trigger. You're not thinking about the gun thing. It allows your brain to open up and observe. You get to be way more observational about your environment, because your brain's not focused on operating the exploding gas device in your hand.
So I noticed when I hit masterclass in USPSA, because I was still working then, I hadn't retired yet. All of a sudden, my CQB jumped up to a whole new level, and it wasn't because USPSA was anything like CQB in terms of the movement. Because yes, the actual physicality of it, there are some parallels, but the way you apply them are totally different, right?
Mhm.
There's different context of the movement, different goals in the movement. It's not the same as a USPSA match. So I thought it would help my shooting, but I never imagined it would carry over to helping my CQB the way it did. And it did for exactly the reason you're talking about. Because the more bandwidth your brain has for all the stuff it has to do with your conscious mind, the less your conscious mind is involved in where your feet are going for the movement, where your gun needs to be, your transitions, your trigger presses, your sight pictures, your reloads. If all of that stuff is things you literally don't even have to think about, now I have all the bandwidth I have, whatever that amount may be, to worry about the other things. What my enemy is, my opponent, what my opponent's doing, what my teammates are doing, the physical environment I'm operating in, any other factors, any other surprises that may come up. I'm more aware of those because I'm spending less mental effort on the shooting. Because I would argue there's degrees to automaticity too. Like there gets,
Absolutely.
yeah. And I think,
I have a funny anecdote about automaticity. So I had past tense, had a woodchuck in my backyard. and I was out in the yard with my dog, and I happened to have my carry gun on me, and uh this the woodchuck, for whatever reason, sticks his head out from his little burrow, which he had burrowed under my shed. He was tearing up my landscaping and just pissing me off. And I looked down at the dog, who was a 90-pound half Great Dane, and I'm like, "Are you going to go do the dog thing? Like, grab him by the neck and shake him?" And the dog's just like, "Doo doo doo, I'm a good boy." And now, I made a not the best judgment call, but I knew I had a clear backstop. I had a clean backstop because I was shooting at this thing at a downward angle, like no chance of that bullet going anywhere but into the dirt if I missed. And I don't remember there was no at no point after I made the shoot decision. So I was standing there and I'm looking at my dog, and my dog's like, "I'm not going to do anything about it." And I go, "Fine, I'll deal with this." And I made a shoot decision. I didn't make a decision to draw or line up the sights or press the trigger or any of those other things. I made a decision that I was to shoot this thing. And when the front sight presented itself in the right place, the target was still there and the gun went off, right? None of that happened. There wasn't a drip of conscious thought past, "I'm going to shoot," you know? And that was, and then my conscious thoughts kicked back in as I stood there with my ears ringing, going, "Fuck, that 38 was way louder with no hearing protection than I thought." And then my neighbor texts me and he's like, "Did you just shoot that woodchuck?" And I was like, "Yes, I did. Everything's fine." But it's a funny example of automaticity because, hindsight being 2020, I wouldn't have shot a 38 in my backyard with no hearing protection. But when I tell you guys, if you'd never had when I was deployed, my wife spent a bunch of money getting our whole yard re-landscaped, and it looks beautiful. And this woodchuck was tearing it the fuck up. And if every time I would go out there, I would just get pissed off, right? I was like, "You bastard." So anyway, but as a funny example of automaticity, the command that my brain received was, "Shoot this thing," right? And at your level of automaticity, at my level of automaticity, that's the only command it needs. Other people, they're like, "Oh, I want to shoot this. Okay, I need to step one, I need to clear my concealment garment. Step two, I need to draw my gun. I need to establish my master grip. I need to line up my sights, and now I need to press my trigger." None of those steps in between shoot and loud noise were steps. They're just
Right.
like, these are things that happen.
Well, they were steps. They were just subconsciously done. That
Right.
supercomputer in the back of your brain did them for you, so you didn't have to worry about it.
My brain goes, "Ooh, there's the tip of that orange tip on your front side is lined up right on its neck." Whack! So loud. I did recover the bullet though. It expanded. 158. It expanded in the 4 inches of woodchuck neck.
Nice.
158 grade lead
Nice.
semi wad cutter. So I'm like, cool.
So I do think, like, going back to the value of competition. Wait, you know what? No, I'll do it after this because we're getting too sidetracked. But I still had left-hand stuff I wanted to say.
Okay, do the left hand stuff first.
I'm gonna get the
I have a
left-hand
hard
stuff
stop
last.
I have a hard stop in about 10 minutes. So
Okay, all right. So left-hand stuff first. So I was supposed to be left-handed, but it's very
Right.
minor. I'm pretty much just about ambidextrous. Probably not truly, but it's a little bit leaning to the left side. And I'm left eye dominant. But I've always shot a gun with my right hand, or my primary hand, like never any other way. Okay. Which has led to some very weird accommodations from my subconscious brain becoming automatic. If I'm going around the right hand of a piece of cover, the right side of cover, I shoot with my right eye. I shoot with my right eye. Oh yeah, my eye dominance is real minor too. So I actually use either one dependent. I would not recommend this. This is not how I teach. Unless you're like truly got wires crossed mentally like I do, don't try this. But if your wiring is as messed up as mine is, it works really well. It's actually, I think, an advantage if you can do it. So around the right side of cover, I use my right eye and my right hand. Around the left side of cover, I use my right eye and my left hand. Or I'm sorry, my left eye and my right hand. Left eye and right. Because I'm going around the left side of cover. So as soon as my left eye sees it, my brain goes, "Okay, you're good," and I can make the shot. I don't have to clear both eyes because I don't have to use my right eye. And then if I'm shooting strong hand only, I use my right eye. But if I'm shooting support hand only, cover or not, I use my left eye. Yeah, I know it's messed up.
No, I mean, it makes sense and it's an advantage because my eye dominance is extremely strong in my right eye. Like if I close my right eye, I can't read the sign that says engineering that's 7 yards away on the door to our engineering department, right? So my eye dominance is crazy in my right eye, to the point that it was very easy for me to learn to shoot with two eyes open because my
The
brain,
ghost image doesn't even bother you. Yeah.
it's not even, it's basically not even there. My brain, my left, my eye doctor described it as that my brain takes all of its image clarity and focus from my right eye, and my left eye is along for the ride to give me depth perception. And I'm like, cool, thanks,
Yeah.
doc.
Yep. No, I'm at the exact opposite end of the spectrum. Like and so like if you watch videos I film in Ace, or I've got the iCam, right? It's got the or
Mhm.
aim cam, I mean, sorry. It's got the camera right over my right eye. In both of those, when I shoot with my left hand only, you can see that I'm not using the eye the camera's lined up with.
Oh, that makes sense.
So you can actually see it when you watch my videos. It's how I figured out I was doing it, actually. I didn't even realize I was doing it until I saw a video. And I'm like,
I started
why is the gun not lined up? Wait a
because
minute.
I'm using my
It's
other
lined up with
eyeball.
my left eye. Yeah.
You know what I did discover, that one thing that threw me off not too long, well, last year, I shot Bianchi Cup, and I shot open rim fire. I shot two divisions. I shot production, which I normally shoot, and I shot open rim fire. And Bianchi's got a stage where you draw, transition the gun to your weak hand, and then you shoot 3 and 3. And I had never shot weak hand only with an optic before. And I hadn't even practiced it because I threw that gun together at the last minute. And I got it up on target, and I have never struggled to index the dot strong hand only, or with two hands on the gun. And I got it up, and and I couldn't. All of a sudden, I was like, I don't know where the dot is, and I'm like, and then my brain was like, move the gun an inch. Oh, there it is. Oh
Yeah.
man, because what I was trying to do was keep both eyes open and align the dot with my non-dominant eye for some stupid reason.
And see, I do that all the time. It's just, and
Yeah, I
it's not a planned thing. Like I said, I don't teach this way. I don't recommend it unless you know for sure that your eye dominance is very minor. I wouldn't try it. But
oh yeah.
it just kind of happened naturally with me. It wasn't a planned thing. It was it
Huh.
was one of those examples of that supercomputer in your subconscious just getting a request for a certain end result and figuring out the best way for you to do it.
Yeah. But no, I think to go back, to revisit the benefits of competition, I still, to this day, the other huge benefit of competition is that it is accessible, right? If you
Yep.
have if I were to sort of lay out like the path for someone who doesn't do this for a job and doesn't want to make this their full-time hobby either, right? Like let's say you love golf, and you mostly, when you get time to yourself, you want to play golf. Great. God bless you. But you bought a Glock 19, or sorry, bad example. You bought a Taurus G3 for home protection. Eh, It's funny, the Glock 19 is the Honda Civic, right? Like it's just the first thing that springs to mind.
Yep.
You bought a Taurus G3 for home protection, and you want to get better with it. So what you should do in this sort of perfect path that I am imagining right now is you should go get your baseline set. So go to a local instructor, take not your state's concealed carry course, but take a slightly more in-depth concealed carry course, right? Go to a local instructor, get that. Step one. Then go to an IDPA match. Like now that you can safely draw from your holster and safely reload your gun, go to one IDPA match. Go to, I don't know, go to one match a quarter. Call that your first year. Take a local class, go to one match a quarter. Maybe dry fire, maybe don't. Try to go to the range instead. Find time. I'm not going to set a requirement on range time. Year two, go take a nationally level instructor class, right? Go to one of the traveling roadshow guys. It's funny, everyone that I was about to suggest, I was going to say go to you, but you're retired from open enrollment. And then I was going to say Ernest, but he's retired from open enrollment. So like, hang on, all of my friends are retired. But go find a reputable national level instructor, take a class from them, then go shoot one match a quarter. If you do that, and then repeat that for the next 3 or 4 years, you will get good enough at shooting that if you need to use your gun in a defensive encounter, you are not a liability. Like that is, and that's the baseline I would like everybody to get to, is not a liability.
Yeah. Be a solution, not an addition to the problem.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
not by way of motivation. I know everybody wants to be the solution, but if you're not prepared enough in your liability, you become part of the problem.
100%. And I mean, and I love competition shooting. I love IDPA. I love USPSA. What's interesting, as I've gotten older, I actually like IDPA more for the person. So I will say this: if your sole driving goal as a gun owner and shooter is to get better at shooting and become a really, really good performance-based shooter, shoot USPSA. End of discussion. It will challenge you in ways that IDPA never will. If your goal is to be a better shooter for the sake of self-defense and personal protection, I would actually say to shoot IDPA, not because it's going to challenge you in ways that are more difficult than USPSA, but you're going to be able to, you have the same level of access to skill progression, right? An IDPA masterclass shooter is a god compared to your average shooter. But what IDPA does that I think is very beneficial for these people is, one, it keeps the round counts lower and the course is shorter, so it's more accessible, right? If
Yep.
you're not willing to do this as a hobby. And while
the equipment and guns, or carry equipment and guns, like you can't get involved in the equipment race the same way.
No, you can get a Taurus G3, change out the sights for, a fiber optic front and a blacked out rear and 3 magazines, and you can go be competitive. Like, you could go make masterclass with that gun and be competitive at a state level with that gun if you wanted to, right? There's no, in CCP would be the division that gun fits into, or SSP, whichever. But you could go be competitive with that gun. There's no question about that. And I think that's a huge benefit. And I think the other benefit is, while this Nationals was an exception, IDPA puts in a lot more realistic props that you're likely to interact with in the real world than I've seen in USPSA. In IDPA, I have had to open doors, real doors. I've had to get in and out of real actual cars and open real actual car doors. I've had to carry simulated babies. I've had to push shopping carts. I've had to open windows. I've had to perform all of these sorts of tasks that are normal ass things that you do in your normal ass life, but do them with a loaded gun in my hand while also trying to shoot at something.
The other thing I think, and this applies for both IDPA and USPSA equally, right? But one of the things I think is a benefit for the civilian, and by civilian, I'm not being disparaging, but it's different when you've carried a gun for a living and you've actually been in fights. Like, that's a different thing, right? But I have never been as stressed in a gunfight as I am when the buzzer goes off at a match. Never, not once. And other people I know with combat experience and competition experience say the same thing. So for a civilian, it's a great way to get that stress inoculation. Yes, it's a different stressor, but you're still trying to operate a firearm at a very high level under stress.
No, and here's something. So on that stress topic, your brain cannot differentiate the death of your ego from the death of your body. Okay.
Yes.
So, like, the stress that, like, if you, and I've struggled with match stress my entire career, because as I got better and as also I became more of a public figure, especially as a revolver shooter, there is an expectation that if I go, especially like a state level match, right, that I am going to win that match. That is both an external and an internal expectation. The amount of stress that causes is a real pain in the dick to deal with. I jumped out of a plane with the Army Golden Knights. I was way less stressed out jumping out of a perfectly good airplane with the Army parachute team than I ever have been in a match.
Was it a military airplane? If
Yes,
so, I would argue it's not perfectly good.
Well, define military. I mean, it was owned by the military, but it was the Golden Knights demo plane, so it was really nice.
I know. I'm just making a joke. That's my standard comeback when somebody asks me why I wanted to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. Is that none of the airplanes I jumped out of were perfectly good. Not a one.
Boy, that's a fact. Well, hey Matt, I gotta go. Unfortunately, I gotta run. So
All right. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed the episode as much as I did. Check out Caleb's stuff on all the social medias.
All of them.
And it's all of them and his work for Taurus. Why don't you give everybody where to get a hold of you real quick before we get off?
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to get a hold of me directly, the easiest thing to do is to honestly send me a DM on Instagram. I am not so famous that I don't read my DMs. All right. To find me on Instagram, you can search for Caleb Giddings. I'm the only one. Or you can search for my username, which is a portmanteau. Portmanteau means two words jammed together of the words radical and Caleb. So it's Radicaleb on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook, And then definitely follow Taurus USA. You will see, and Rossi USA and Heritage Manufacturing. You'll see me in a lot of that content, as well as I continue to educate and promote those brands.
Yep. And we've got some, I'm not going to say what, because it hasn't been released yet. We have some stuff coming up pretty soon we're doing together for that.
Yes, we are. It's going to be very cool. Technically, that gun's people know about that gun, but I'm not going to say it because like it's still sort of up in the air. But like, if you go search for Taurus New Products IWA, that's the International World Arms Show, I think. I don't think that's actually what it is, but it is IWA. Go search for that, and you'll see what we're talking about.
Yep, and I'm pretty excited about this one. It's going to be a good offering.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, everybody. I will talk to everybody soon. Don't forget to do all that stuff you've got to do to make these socials be nice to me. Go ahead and click like, subscribe, all that other good stuff so that I can beat the algorithm. And I'll talk to everybody soon.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Way is in Training. Please come back again as we explore how training makes us better at our craft and better in our everyday lives. See all of you soon.